Hello everybody, it's a real pleasure to be here in Israel. Before I start, I wanted to ask a few questions. How many people here are teachers primarily in your main role as teachers? Can I have some hands? Okay, seems like about half or more, 3/4. How many people here are more in the younger students, K-12 area, in any role, more concerned with that age? And how many, again about half, how many are more in university, higher education, adult learning area? Okay, about half. Okay, good, well, good. So all I was given for this panel was this title, Leading the Way from Schooling to Learning. So I've been involved in, I guess, leading education technology for pretty much all my life. And I have a few thoughts that are going to be quite different from the ones you've heard. So I want to share that. Just because we have school classrooms set up in a certain way, and maybe in that way for a long time, better, it doesn't mean people haven't been learning. Of course we have. We all have. And outside the classroom, we learn whatever we want to, whatever means is available to us. Books, magazines, friends, you know, there's always been ways to learn what we want. We have now we have more internet, we have more media, and we are learning machines. Human beings are learning machines. It's kind of hard to stop us learning. The reason is we have this brain, and this photograph's interesting because it translates the Latin names for the brain parts into English. Now, this is a structure that neuroscience is just starting to understand well. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about neuroscience, but this structure, this brain, this piece of meat we all have, has not changed significantly for millions of years. It's the same tool that we are using for learning. This is our educational technology. Therefore, quite a lot of the things that we know that work for learning are going to continue to work. They're not going to change. The most important part for learning is this thing in the middle called the hippocampus. The raw input from your nervous system, a lot of it goes through this part of the brain. It's like a buffer in a computer. It holds that raw information for around 20 seconds. And if you don't use that information, if you don't focus your attention on that information in that period, it's lost. So to be put into a long-term memory, to learn something, you need to be active. Now, it can just be an active attention. It can be internal. But if you're externally active, it's even better. That's what happens if you don't remember. So to turn those memories into those long-term memories, you use it. It causes electricity to travel to that brain. It's difficult to motivate yourself to always be focusing, to always have that focus, your attention, to make yourself remember. A lot of what you hear today is just going to go in and out, unless you make a conscious effort to learn. Now, this is why a teacher is so valuable, because teachers are so good at making students do those processes to make sure that things stick. And how many people here can, if I say, remember the best teacher you ever had? Can you remember that person? Almost everybody, right? Good response. So let me get back to traditional learning places. This is a picture last Saturday of my high school. We had a reunion. There were people there from every corner of society. That one school, everyone's gone whoosh, right throughout every corner you can think of. Now, I'm generally a very progressive person in the way I think about the world, right? I'm very focused on change and improvement. But here are my thoughts on schools. Schools, and especially public schools, are more important now than they have ever been. And I want to say why. I'm glad you agree. So public schools are often portrayed as clueless teachers, creating robots, putting curriculum through them in huge mass numbers. And this picture is often conveyed by EdTech startups as a kind of a straw man to say, well, this is a big problem, we will fix it with apps or with companies driven by advertising, and this often happens. Now, ironically, some of those same technologies are then plugging people into artificial intelligence and algorithms for all their learning, which is more robotic. Now, I don't believe that picture of schools is true. There is a hint of truth in it, of course. And I think there's some very good reasons why that situation exists and why that straw man is a successful thing and is often people nod their heads when they hear it. The core reason is that public education is often undervalued by governments. The investment that we as nations put into education is not as good as it could be. And why? Because it's a simple human fact that the people who are running governments tend to be quite wealthy people who have private tutors, private education, and they don't feel the real need to drive public education. Now, I'm sure this government here is not like that. I'm not. But I can point to plenty of countries in the world, including my country, Australia, where this is very much the case. And funding is being cut from education again and again and again. For these powerful people who are friends with large corporations sometimes, look at the US, public schools are a place to create workers. So you hear a lot of talk about skills and worker training. When public education is not a priority, schools are forced to be more like factories because of the numbers and the economics. Public education isn't given the resources that it needs. Full-time teachers are among the lowest paid and the most poorly trained people in society, and they're forced to work overtime. You can't assess your students during school time, you have to do that at home. Schools are placed under an administrative nightmare of standardised testing, which narrows the curriculum to the things that will pass the tests, because those tests will determine the funding for the schools. So there's a lot of pressure. And I'm married to a teacher, and I know a lot of teachers, and I feel this pain. Students and their parents are they're saying public education is not good enough, they scrape the money, they put them in private institutions. But this has the effect of segregating people. You don't mix with a wide cross-section of the society, you get segregated, and things become more localised, less diverse. When public education is a priority, then quality education is treated like a basic human right and the fundamental driver of economic success that it is. Everything is driven by education, every field. Does anybody disagree with that? So teachers, if education's a priority, teachers are supported, they are respected, they're on par with doctors, lawyers, scientists. They have time to learn to do their job well, and the good ones don't leave. Right now, a lot of teachers will teach for a few years and leave because they need to earn more money, they need to get out. In places where education is supported, you don't. You become a teacher for your whole life. That's the sort of person I want teaching my children, right? We can rethink the necessary curriculum for becoming a citizen in our times. You look at some of the votes that have happened in the global stage recently, there's a lot of gaps in people's knowledge. Students need to have control over technology, not be slaves to technology. Students need to have a deep appreciation for science and what creates truth. How do you know when things are true? If you are driving your own agenda, you will go down a rabbit hole and you will know a lot about one thing, and it may not even be a real thing. And there'll be a lot of things you don't know. So the curriculum needs to be very broad, and it needs to be focused on making the world a better place. If public education is a priority, the best place to learn is just your local school, because all of the schools are good. You just go to the local university. You are with whoever lives in the area. You obviously have opportunities to be with people around the world through the beautiful technology that we have as well. But you don't have to go to a particular school. So what I think we need to do more of, technology is a powerful force for efficiency. I'm developing VR stuff. I'm in artificial intelligence too. I know these technologies. I'm not like somebody who is scared of technology, but we need to not get too excited by it, and we need to apply it. We need to use it well. So let's focus on making our public schools places of quality that can produce wise, kind, broadly educated, globally oriented citizens of the future. Instead of gadgets and apps that try to make education cheap or replace human beings, how many people do we have on this planet? It's coming up for 8 billion people, right? There's no shortage of people to teach. Let's fix the policies and the systems that are holding our teachers down. That's the education technology we need to work on, right? How do we work as people for people? So let's work to empower our educators to improve our world. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing some of you this afternoon. Thank you.